Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Unexpected, a nanny/single-parent romance by Jenna Hartley. Narrated by Shaina Summerville and Hugo Locke. Chapter 1. Alexis. You look like you could use a drink. I glanced up to see Christine leaning against the door of my office and grimaced. I could use a hell of a lot more than a drink. Rough day? She asked, pushing off the doorframe. I laughed, but it was without humor. Rough week. And I didn't see it getting any easier anytime soon. Wolf keeps changing his mind on what he wants. I've shown him no fewer than 20 properties. Shelley is still out on maternity leave, and the city is fighting me on the plans for the new property on Sycamore. I leaned my head back against the chair, sick of all the drama. The bullshit. I loved my job. Had worked my ass off to get to this point in my career, but it never seemed like enough. There was always another challenge to conquer. A newer, bigger client to court. More money to be made. I used to think that if I had $500 in the bank, I'd be set. Now I had 500 so many times over, I'd lost count. Despite the number of zeros in my account, it was never enough. I was never enough. I was always running from one thing to the next. Hair appointments to cover the premature gray, spa appointments to keep my skin firm and glowing and my bikini line clean, the gym to stay in shape, client meetings, school conferences, plays. The list went on and on. Wolf will be happy in the end, Christine said, breaking me out of my thoughts. You'll find the perfect property. You always do. Deep down, I knew she was right. But sometimes it felt like I had to sell my soul to get there. Like I wasn't just selling the client a property with every deal, but a little piece of myself. Thanks, I said. And I meant it. Christine was my employee, and she was a good sounding board. She was a hard worker, good at her job. She reminded me a lot of myself at her age. I'm sure you'll find your footing with the developmental side, she said. You just need to make the right contacts. I nodded. I'd been wanting to branch out to developing properties for years. I'd waited until Sophia was in school full-time. And with her visiting her dad for the summer, I'd finally felt confident enough to take on the extra work it would entail. It was a big gamble, but I was hoping it would pay off. My phone rang, and I glanced down at the screen to see my ex-husband's name. I have to take this, I said to Christine before connecting the call. Cal? Alexis. Hey. I knew that tone. He needed a favor. What do you need? This huge opportunity came up. Once in a lifetime, really. I could hear people talking and laughing in the background. Loud music. He was probably in a bar. I pinched the bridge of my nose. I knew what was coming next, and I was tempted to hang up the phone just so I wouldn't have to hear it. I got a music gig I can't pass up. I blew out of breath. I wanted to be happy for him, honestly. His passion for music was one of the things that had initially drawn me to him. But over time, I'd realized he would always put it above everything and everyone else. And I'd had enough of playing second fiddle. I'd had enough of feeling like a single parent, working to support our family while he was off gallivanting. Off chasing his dream. Divorcing him had helped. Our relationship was better now than when we were married. But he would always be an artsy, free spirit. And I would always be the worker bee. The bad cop to his good. Cal, I chided. Sophia's all packed, and she's super excited to spend time with you. Maybe I could... He was quiet, but the background noise was overpowering. Maybe she could come with me for part of it, since I'll be touring for the next 8 weeks. My eyes went wide. 8 weeks? That's the whole summer. In my business, summer was selling season. I often moved more properties during the months of May to July than the other 3 quarters combined. With the school year over, families were looking to move, and properties showed well during the summer when most buyers were generally more relaxed. Plus, I'd been counting on having this time to iron out some of the issues on my Sycamore property. I know, babe. I'm sorry. But I could still take her for part of it. Absolutely not, I ground out, standing up so I could close the door to my office. Our 6-year-old daughter is not going to be a groupie. Yeah, you're probably right. The tour bus is going to be crowded as it is. Did he seriously think that taking a 6-year-old on a cross-country music tour was a good idea? It was times like this I wondered what I'd ever seen in him. Opposites might attract, but what happened after the initial appeal wore off? What am I supposed to tell her? I asked, knowing just how upset she'd be. I could already picture her tear-stained face. Tell her I'll catch her next time. Tell her I'll make it up to her. I promise. I rolled my eyes. How many times had he said that before? Cal, you can't do this. She's counting on you, and so am I. I'm working on closing a huge deal, and I gave Gabriella the summer off because you were supposed to be spending time with our daughter. Gabriella was our live-in nanny, and Sophia adored her. I adored her. She treated me like a daughter, and I'd be lost without her. I might attend parent-teacher conferences and school plays, but she knew all the ins and outs of Sophia's routine. She knew where Sophia's favorite outfit was and what her favorite food was. Sometimes I felt like a bad mom for not being as involved, but then I reminded myself I was affording her a life I could never have dreamed of. I was ensuring she'd never have to work as hard as I did. I loved her, and I showed that love by providing for our family financially. Summer camp, he said, as if it were that simple. Camp? I shook my head. It's too late to register, and most of the good ones had wait lists months ago. I heard him talking to someone else in the background, and I knew I'd already lost him. It didn't matter what I said or how much I begged. Cal was going to do what he wanted. The problem was, I was going to pay the price. Again. Yet again, he was having all the fun, and I was doing all the work. Yet again, he was bailing on our daughter, and I was having to scramble to pick up the slack. Yet again. Hey, Lex. You still there? I clenched my fist, staring out at the skyline beyond my window. I'm still here. I'm always here. Can't you offer to pay Gabriella more or something? I bet she'd be happy to watch Sophia. No, Cal, I can't. She's already halfway to Columbia by now. I spat back, getting madder and madder the longer this conversation dragged on. It didn't matter that our nanny had gone home to visit her family in Columbia. It was the principle of it. All right. His tone told me he thought I was being irrational, which only incensed me further. Calm down, babe. Don't call me babe. Don't call me Lex either. I'm not your wife. I'm not your groupie. My voice rose with every word, my anger becoming something tangible. Something living and breathing. I'm just the mother of your child, and I'll figure it out without you. I always do. Look, he sighed. I'm really sorry, but I have to go. I'll FaceTime with Sophia when I can. Cal! Cal! I shouted into the phone when he didn't answer. only then realizing he'd already hung up. Shit. I continued to stare at the phone as if he'd call back and tell me it was all a big joke. I laid my head on the desk and took a few deep breaths, trying to center myself. It wasn't just the change in plans or the lack of notice, I thought, though those definitely pissed me off. It was the impact on Sophia. I knew how devastated she'd be. And how guilty I felt, even though none of it was my fault. I should have known better than to trust him. My phone chimed, and I lifted my head to see a calendar entry for drinks with the girls. For a moment, I considered bailing. But then I remembered Sophia was sleeping over at a friend's house, and I could really use a drink. When I arrived at the bar, Lauren was already waiting, drink in hand. She waved me over, and my red-soled shoes clacked against the floor, drawing attention. I straightened, tossing my caramel waves over my shoulder as I strode toward her. I felt powerful, confident, sexy. Even when my life was spinning out of control, I could at least look like I had it together. Alexis! Lauren's bronzed skin glowed beneath the lights, her brown eyes sparkling. Honey, you look good. She spun her finger in a circle, indicating I should do the same. She shimmied her shoulders as if enjoying a decadent dessert. It made me laugh as I slid into the high chair across from her, knowing I'd made the right decision in coming. Lauren and I had been friends since what we'd lovingly referred to as the college internship from hell. We'd bonded while working for a property developer, and we'd stayed friends since, even as we formed our own businesses. I often referred my clients to her for interior design, though her real talent was staging. Which was why, as much as I'd wanted to go home tonight and crawl into bed, I knew I needed to come out. Hot date? She asked. Annoying client, I said, knowing her question was in reference to my fitted sheath dress and sky-high heels. She flashed me a wicked grin. Even better. I rolled my eyes. I'm not sleeping with him, if that's what you're implying. Maybe you should, she said. If you dress like that for meetings, I'm positive he'd be interested. Oh, I said, waving the bartender over to order a drink. He's interested. I'm just more interested in business. She smirked. Maybe you could mix a little business with pleasure. It might close the deal faster. I knew she was kidding. At least I hoped so. But I wasn't interested in sleeping with my clients. It would only end in disaster. You know I never mix business with pleasure. That's not true. She gestured between us. That's different, I huffed, thanking the bartender when he returned with my drink. She and I had been colleagues first, then friends. Well, you look hot, girl, she said, raising her glass to toast. So do you. I grinned, following suit. I took a sip of my drink, relishing the burst of flavors on my tongue. The salty olive, the gin. It was divine. I love that color on you. I do look pretty fabulous, don't I? She laughed, and we both knew she was only half kidding. That was one of the things I loved about Lauren. Her confidence. Where are the others? I asked, glancing around for Juliana and Harper. Juliana had a work emergency, and Harper... I cut in, already knowing the answer. Don't tell me. Brett called at the last minute, and yet again she dropped everything for him. She took a sip of her drink and nodded. For a hot second, I thought you were going to stand me up, too. Not that I'd mind. There's a delicious piece of man candy at the bar I'd love to sample. I rolled my eyes and laughed. Yeah, sorry. Long day, then Cal called. Ugh. What's he bailing on now? The summer? Sophia? My shoulders slumped, and I fiddled with the stem of my cocktail glass. How am I going to tell her? She's going to be crushed. Her jaw fell open. He bailed for the entire summer? I nodded, still wondering what I was going to do. Gabriella wasn't an option. Summer camp was out, and I sure as hell couldn't take time off to watch Sophia 24/7, even if I'd wanted to. You're not looking to hire a 6-year-old summer intern, are you? I teased. She threw her head back and laughed, the rich, lusty sound drawing the attention of several men nearby. No. How about a nanny service? I don't know. I hedged. Sophia had only ever known Gabriella, and the idea of finding someone else, trusting someone else, seemed daunting. They run background checks and have a crazy vetting process, she said, surprising me with her knowledge. And you don't even communicate directly with the nanny. The agency handles everything, like a vacation rental. I wanted to point out that my daughter wasn't a vacation rental, but I needed details. How do you know all this? I asked. Lauren didn't have kids, and I wasn't sure she ever planned to. One of my clients, the house I did recently over on Hummingbird, she owns one. Hartwell Agency, she finally settled on. Rumor has it her clients include several major celebrities. She dug in her purse, grabbing her phone and tapping on the screen. I'm sending you her info now. Thanks, I said. Not sure I'd ever use it, but at least it was something. I mean, if it was good enough for the celebrities of the world. I opened my mouth to say something else, but Lauren held up a finger. Hold that thought. There's a hottie 2 tables over, and he is checking you out. I turned my head, curious to see what he looked like. No! Lauren reached out, grabbing my chin and forcing my attention back to her. Don't look! Then he'll know we were talking about him. And now he's going to think I'm a lesbian. I made a goofy face, letting her know I was joking. She could be so dramatic. You want to kiss? She teased. Give him a little show. Some guys are really into that. I backed away. Yeah, that's not the type of guy I'm trying to attract. I took a sip of my drink. Actually, what am I saying? I'm not trying to attract men, I'm trying to repel them. I pressed against an imaginary force field. Stay away, men of the earth. Lauren grabbed my arms and pulled them down. That's crazy talk. You've been divorced for a year, and your relationship with Cal was over long before then. It's time. I glared at her. My life is good. Full. I don't need a man. I didn't say you needed a man. You need sex. I scoffed. I don't have time for that. Honey, she said, holding up a finger. Everyone has time for sex. And you, my dear, desperately need to get laid. Did I miss the companionship? Yes, but I barely had time to sleep. I was running a highly successful brokerage firm, as well as taking on a new property development. Between that and Sophia, I had enough on my plate without adding a man. Besides, being a mom added a whole other set of challenges to dating. Men my age were either in a relationship or looking for someone younger. Someone without children. And the idea of introducing Sophia to a man I was seeing, the idea of that was enough to have me downing the rest of my drink and asking for another. Lauren's expression softened, and she leaned forward. Is this about Cal? Are you still hung up on him? What? I jerked my head back. No, absolutely not. I mean, the sex was good, but I don't... I closed my eyes briefly before reopening them. No. This had nothing to do with my ex. Then what? She asked. Because you certainly don't lack for interested partners. Nearly every man, and even a few women, stopped to watch you when you walked in. I blew out a harsh breath. I'm just overloaded, exhausted. I have my job and Sophia. You know what's great for helping people relax? She grinned, but I rolled my eyes, already anticipating her answer. Sex. Keep your voice down, I hissed, feeling the stares of nearby patrons. Sex, 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 she chanted, mocking me. All right, I said, moving her drink away. You're cut off. And you, my friend, she pointed her finger at me, are no fun. Hey, I pouted. We're having fun now, aren't we? We are. And you know I love you, but you need to relax. You need to let loose every now and then. Easy for her to say. She didn't have a mortgage, private school tuition, college to plan for, and she didn't have a daughter to consider. I didn't have the luxury of dating, and I wasn't interested in casual sex. No, I need to stay focused. I admire your drive, Alexis, I do. But sometimes you have to slow down and appreciate the scenery. She waggled her eyebrows. I laughed. Oh my God, that was so cheesy. She smirked, throwing back the rest of her drink. Cheesy or not, it made you smile. Now, let's go shake our booties. I see a hot man I'm ready to grind up on. I let her pull me out onto the dance floor. We're getting too old for this, I said over the music. You're never too old to have fun, she shouted over the thump of the bass. She was right. But sometimes I felt older than my 35 years. I had the weight of the world on my shoulders, and as much as I wanted to let go sometimes, I couldn't.
Chapter 2. Preston. Come on, Hunter said. You're not really gonna pass up a week of endless pussy, are you? I rolled my eyes. How many times do I have to tell you, dickweed? I'm not going. Hunter was spending the summer in New York, opening a new location for a business he'd started with a couple friends from business school. The four of them worked hard, but they liked to play hard too, and I knew Hunter would be living the life out there this summer. He backed away from me, holding his arms out wide as he neared the entrance to the kitchen. Fine, he smirked. More for me. I shook my head, marveling at how different the two of us were. We'd been best friends since 5th grade. Hunter had been with me through everything, had stood by my side when everyone else left. Just him and my parents. Well, and Sam. But I hadn't met him until later, until after the shit hit the fan. I don't need to go to New York to get laid, I said, dodging a flip-flop he'd tossed in my direction. There are plenty of girls on campus to choose from. Yet, you never bring any home. I lifted a shoulder. What could I say? They all seem so young. Hunter scoffed. Dude, you're 26, which means they're like, what, 5, maybe 6 years younger? Younger and hot. What more could you want? I'm not interested. Well, what kind of woman are you interested in? I thought he was genuinely curious until he said, I mean, if you're into dudes, that's cool too. I'm not, but hey, more power to ya. I rolled my eyes, turning my attention back to the sandwich I was making. I want a woman who's confident, smart, sexy. He crossed his arms over his chest. A woman who knows what she wants and isn't afraid to ask for it. And those, I said, giving him a pointed look, aren't the type of girls I met on campus. I had an image of the woman I wanted, though I didn't know her name. Didn't know anything about her, other than the fact that she had a daughter who attended the same school as Theo. She was sophisticated, self-assured, and sexy as hell. I'd only seen her a few times, at school plays and such, but the image of her stuck in my mind. Hunter waved his hand in front of my face. "Earth to Preston!" "What?" "Wait, do you want an older woman?" "Is this because you want to be a kept man?" he asked, amusement coloring his tone. "No, money has nothing to do with it. I'd happily support my wife. Not that I really had much to support a hypothetical spouse with. Not yet, anyway. Between tuition and rent, I was lucky to be staying afloat. I had a scholarship, but it wasn't enough to cover everything, and I refused to ask my parents for money, not after all they'd shelled out for me already. As it was, they'd be working for the rest of their lives, something I hoped to change. "Whoa, whoa!" His eyes went wide. "Back up. Marriage?" "Yeah, one day. Hopefully sooner rather than later. I want to get married, have kids. Don't you?" His eyes went wide. "No way, no fucking way." "Well, I do. I know how short life can be. I don't want to waste it chasing meaningless relationships. I want more." His expression softened. "I know. I just think that," he blew out a puff of air, "that you were forced to grow up so fast, you kind of skipped straight to adulthood." I nodded, knowing he had a good point. I did grow up fast. That's what cancer did to you. "I don't want you to miss out on anything life has to offer," he added. "Besides, I could use a wingman I can trust." I smirked. "Nice try, but it's not happening. Theo's family offered me extra hours this summer, and I need them. Besides, I can't bail on him." He rolled his eyes. "I still can't believe my best friend's a manny." "I'm not a manny. I'm an in-home child care provider," I said. "Call it what you want," he said. "You're a manny." It worked well with my schedule, and the money was good, more than good. The only opportunities I'd found that paid more involved stripping, no thanks, and bartending, which didn't appeal to me either. Being a nanny was satisfying, fulfilling. It pays well, and after the kids go to bed, I have time to study. "It gives you time to learn to crochet, too," he teased. He had no idea the time and energy it took to care for a child day in and day out. A child who wasn't your own, yet you felt attached to. When I'd started the job, it was because I thought it would be easy. I liked kids. I enjoyed spending time with them. Now, I appreciated just how difficult the job was, but how rewarding it could be, too. And, like I'd told him, it paid well. "Do you know how many single moms there are? Hot single moms?" I flashed him a wicked grin, enjoying his stupefied expression. His jaw dropped. "Dude," he said, drawing out the word. "No fucking way. You're banging the moms?" I lifted a shoulder, leading him to infer what he wanted. I wasn't banging anyone, but this would get him off my back. It might not be for the right reasons, but I was tired of having to defend my job. Maybe, after this, he'd finally stop giving me shit about being a manny. Damn it. In-home child care provider. "Is that why you change diapers? So you can fuck mommy after the kids go to bed?" I cringed at his crude language. Sure, some of the moms were attractive, but I was their employee. And besides, I mostly worked for Theo's family, and his parents were married, happily so. They seemed to have it all. Dog, big house, nice cars, even a boat. "You're such a pig." He burst out laughing. "I fucking knew you were lying. You should see your face." I shoved his shoulder as I moved past him for my bedroom. "Fuck off." "Hey," he said, snagging a piece of apple from my plate before halting with it in midair. Maybe you should consider it. I furrowed my brows.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?